Wilder, Keithwilder.
And Mr. Wilder, talk about the group's involvement, how they first got involved in the music industry from the 70s.
Oh, well, actually my brother was over in Germany, my brother Johnnie Wilder. He was in the service, and when he got out of the service, he had formed a group called Johnnie Wilder and the Chicago HEATWAVE. And as that group evolved, he wanted to then take it to a different level. And I was in Dayton, Ohio at the time with a group called the Hawthorne Express. So he said, look, Keith, I know I've been in Europe for years. Why don't you come over here and let's join forces and you and I, be in the same group. And I said, okay. So I flew over to Germany and I joined the group, and we changed the name to just HEATWAVE because it was he and I were as upfront singers with the band. And so from there we went to England. And in England, we started playing in clubs, and a record company called GTO came to one of our shows, saw us, loved us, signed us, and then we started recording records from there. And it was really surely that quick. And so we had a few songs we had written in it.
Always and forever, each moment with you is just like a dream to me that somehow came true. And I know tomorrow will still be the same. We got a life of love that won't ever change, and every day love me your own special way. Melt all my heart away with a smile. Ain't no doubt we are here to party. Come on out, got to get it started. Dance with the boogie, get down. Cause boogie nights are always the best in town. Got to keep on dancing, keep on dancing. Got to keep on dancing, keep on dancing. Get that groove, let it take you higher. Make it move, set this place on fire. Dance with the boogie, get down. Cause boogie nights are always the best in town. But you keep on dancing, keep on dancing.
And Rod Tempterton was our keyboard player at that time. And Rod, as you know today, is a beautiful and sensational, successful writer. He's written for great artists as Michael Jackson, George Benson, of course HEATWAVE. I had to add us in that equation. And we took off from there.
All the songs on HEATWAVE's first LP were written and composed by our organ player. Bang him right on. Yeah, right on the man.
It's the great untold story of pop that almost everyone's heard by now. The maestro of black music, who turns out to have been a pallid fish gutter from Cleethorpes.
Quincy always talks about, thinking that I must have been black. I must have been, before he met me, because of the music of HEATWAVE.
And what would you say are some of your biggest hits?
Biggest hits were Boogie Nights, Groove Line, Always and Forever, Mind Blowing Decisions, and a few others that, well, I hope you know them and you like them.
And why would you say those songs are so timeless?
That's really down to the fans. They love them. I think they all have a meaning to an era where Boogie Nights was the disco era. And if you're from that era, you'll always remember it. And also, then there's, the ballads of all time, like Always and Forever. It's equated to a lot of people getting married, and they use it as a wedding song. Mind-blowing decision is just what life is. It's a mind-blowing decision. Groove Line, of course, we love dancing and boogie like Boogie Nights. So we continue grooving with Groove Line. And I think those in themselves speak for themselves of where people are at when it comes to our music.
Jones was looking for a writer for Michael Jackson's first solo album.
One night we were in the studio working and the phone call came through, and I was really shocked, because this is guy I used to listen to his records on a Saturday afternoon in Cleethorpes with my mates. The whole thing took 2 weekends, and it was amazing. And by the time it was over, Quincy and I had become such close buddies that, he said, "Oh, I want you to work on everything I'm doing." So I said, "Oh, okay, great." Those albums, Kurt, The Dude and Give Me the Night, were just amazing records to make because there's so many people involved and everybody's giving it up, and it's just a lot of fun to be involved in a situation like that.
I took a chance with a composer that I have loved his work for a long time. Just incredible talent.
Temperton also wrote Michael Jackson's all-conquering Thriller, including a rap for Vincent Price.
Did Rod write the spoken word section too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to know how he wrote it? He wrote it in the taxi on the way from the airport to the studio. That's how he came up with the spoken, all that darkness fall. He was in the taxi going, "See darkness fall." He was in the damn taxi. The taxi. That's how brilliant he was. He's like, "Right, I need some lyrics here. I think I said, I've got to go to the studio now. Right, maybe I'll just do it now."
I'm frantically writing in the back, and when I got to the studio, I saw this limousine pull up out the front, and out steps Vincent Price. And I said to the cab driver, "Go around the back, go around the back." So we raced around the back, and I jumped out, went through the back door, grabbed a hold of the secretary and said, "Photocopy this, quick." and raced in and put it on the music stand. And Vincent walked in and sat down and, just hit it, 2 takes.
Is that where you bumped into HEATWAVE initially in Germany?
Yeah, Johnny and 2 of the guys were originally in the military in Germany, and after they left, they came back over and wanted to carry on with the band, and finally met up with me, and from there we moved out of Germany and started doing other countries, then finally came to England.
How long had you been working as a band before Boogie Nights actually cracked it? Because you produced an album, did you? 8.5 Steppin' was the first single, then Boogie Nights. How long had you been working as a band before you actually got a recording deal and did an album?
I think about 4 years. It was, we did a lot of road work, and we used to play 5 or 6 hours a night on stage. And so we could really get it all together. And then about 3 years later, we came to England for the first time and did a demo up in the north, and came down with this demo with 3 songs, which were Always and Forever, Super Soul Sister, and Another. And went around the record companies and managed to get the job, and got the gig, and went in to make the album.
You always had a very special relationship with Johnnie Wilder and HEATWAVE, having known them for all those years, but at what point did you decide that you wanted to concentrate more on production and writing and less playing the keyboards with the band?
Well, I've got to admit, since I was about 22, 23, I always wanted to write. That was the main thing, write and arrange. And when I got together with Johnny, in actual fact, I always told him, "Listen, in the end, I want to be a writer as my main thing." So he knew that from the top. But of course, with spending 4 years working together on the road, we became a very, very close family. And there's always been that love between us. And it's now nice to be always coming back to do something with the guys again.
So when you decided to stop playing on the road and concentrate on more writing on production, how did you come to meet Quincy Jones?
Well, in actual fact, when I left the band, I didn't have anything going. I just was hoping that something would happen. And then I went to New York to cut HEATWAVE 3, the Hot Property album. And one night while we were in doing a track, a phone call came through and somebody said, Quincy Jones on the phone for you. When I said, hello?
Hello, did you say hello, sir?
Yeah, that was. Hello, Mr. Jones. Yeah. And so he asked me if I would be so kind as to try and write something for Michael Jackson and Rufus, who was doing it at the same time. And initially I said, well, I'm sorry, but it's impossible because I'm in the middle of a HEATWAVE project. It's really difficult for me to move between the two things. I really do hate to be involved in two things at the same time. It's really difficult when you've got your heart in one thing to be swinging out. But because it was Quincy Jones, he finally got me to agree to do just one tune for each artist. So, okay, that's when it's next Saturday, Oh my goodness, yeah.
Where had he spotted your songwriting from, though? Had you sent him some demos or some songs?
He knew the first two HEATWAVE albums well. And then on a trip, somewhat, I guess, a year and a half earlier to LA, Johnny and I did actually meet him at his house. And we actually played in the second album, which was just before the second album came out. And we had a talk for an hour or so. And that was it, really. It was just a nice chat.
And jumping Rufus and Michael Jackson, of course, you actually ended up writing some stuff for Mr. Jones.
Early HEATWAVE, you can hear those influences in songs he wrote for Michael. I mean, it's just a natural progression.
From the phone call to do the Michael Jackson album, what happened? Did you write one song or what did you do?
Well, I went back to the hotel in a real tizzy, because I was working in the studio till about 2 in the morning. And then, when I got home, I had to then sit down and start to write something for Michael. And as there was no time to meet Michael or Quincy beforehand, I thought to myself, well, the best thing is to try to write at least 3 songs and then present them to them and say, well, fellas, you can take which one you want. So I did that, and it was all kind of written in those hours, between 3 in the morning and 9, because I was back in the studio with HEATWAVE at 10. And so I went to LA that weekend, and a car picked me up, took me straight to the studio. And Quincy grabbed hold of me and threw me in and said, this is Rod, fellas, he'll show you what to do. And we cut the 3 tracks in 2 afternoons, in Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. And at the end of it, I walked in the studio in the control room and said to Quincy, well, there you go, which one would you like? He said, what are you talking about? He said, oh, we'll take all 3.
We recorded Burn This Disco Out.
DJ spin the sound. There ain't no way that you're gonna let us down. Gonna dance, gonna burn this disco out. Keep the booty alright.
Off the Wall.
My favorite record on Off the Wall, I like Off the Wall.
So tonight, gotta leave the 9 to 5 up on the shelf and just enjoy yourself. Groove, let the madness in the music get to you. Life ain't so bad at all. Live it off the wall.
And Rock With You.
Rock with you all night. Dance you in the sunlight. Rock with you all night. Gonna rock the night.
Michael Jackson's Rock With You was his biggest single up till this point, and solidified Jackson as a rising musical powerhouse irrespective of his earlier childhood success.
Do you find you write best under pressure then? Do you need to be put on the spot by someone like Mr. Jones, sir?
Well, I certainly hope so, because these days it happens all the time. Yeah, I think that when you're under pressure and you've got to come up with it certainly helps a lot. You can just go straight in and do it.
Had you ever seen yourself writing for somebody like Michael Jackson? Were you able, you said you hadn't met him, were you able to see how he would sing and what sort of song would suit him? Or?
Well, I think that's the whole point. The way I like to write is to be able to direct my attention directly at the artist and say, now what do they like and what do they need? And let's try and get together from that. It suits me much better actually under pressure, because then I've got a direction to go in. I know what I've got to do, and I can do it rather than just sitting at home and writing a song.
George Benson, was that interesting?
Oh yes, it's always nice to do something with a musician who can really, really play fabulously, and that's George.
We got love, times love. It's always there for us to share. Love, times love. To keep us satisfied. Oh, the music in the air and lots of love, everything. To give me the night. Give me the night.
Rod, we move on now to two of my favourite characters, the brothers Johnson. And this was, of course, a project that you look forward to because you co-wrote a lot of the songs on the album with them and shared the writing. Did you build up a special relationship with them?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I've ever met anybody with so much energy as Lewis, especially. Well, both of them. But when the first time I met them was at Quincy's house, and Lewis just walked in, never said hello, just said to us all, "Can we show you a movie?" And we said, yeah. You know, so he immediately took a cinema projector out of his handbag and put it towards the wall and started this film. And it showed a Christmas tree with a wooden guitar with no strings leaning against it. And on the screen walks Lewis, aged 5. Sees this guitar, his eyes light up, he picks it up, starts thrashing it in the way we've all seen him. And it appears this is a guitar that Lewis's dad had made for George for Christmas. So the next thing you see is George, age 5, walk on the screen, see Lewis, get terribly angry, take the guitar off him and beat him over the head with it.
Everybody take it to the top, we're gonna stop all night. In the neighborhood, y'all be there all night.
Have you always been a fan of Patti Austin?
Yeah, well, before I worked with her, I didn't know her work too well. But as soon as I started working with her, I mean, she is one of these people in the industry who's a total laugh a minute, never stops. And her voice is just incredible. So before doing the album with her, she obviously sang on 2 or 3 things we'd worked together on, and we became very close friends. And she's incredible.
I assume you find yourself now being booked up well in advance, do you, with other projects already in the bag to do?
That's right. In fact, the day I finish here in London, I have to fly straight to LA to start Herbie Hancock's new album. And then, of course, next year we start with Michael Jackson on February the 1st for the follow-up to Off the Wall.
I think it was Quincy that said we need something, a title with a little more of an edge, you know. So 200 titles later, Thriller. Okay, now we're on to something. And then that opened up a whole new world.
Baby, through the years, gonna love you more. Is
when we first went in the studio to make the real album, we, I believe, did 9 cuts as the tracks and did some vocals on them. And at that point, we kind of stepped back from it for a minute, had a listen to everything, and realized that 3 or 4 of the cuts, not that they were bad, but were just not fitting in with the way the album appeared to be going. I mean, right from the beginning, Michael had written Billie Jean, and everybody knew, we knew that was going to be a cornerstone of the album. And the style of that and Starting Something, which is another track Michael had written for it, plus what was to become Thriller, we're kind of giving the whole thing an edge and a direction that some of the other tracks didn't have. They seemed a little too poppy and too straightforward for where we appeared to be going. So that's why those tracks never made the album. One of them was Carousel, which was a great song, a slowish song from Michael Sembello, which was beautiful. But lyrically and at that point in time, it didn't seem that was where the album was heading to. And it was just one of those things. But eventually they were all replaced with Beat It, The Lady in My Life, Human Nature, which were some of the best things on the album. So I don't think it was a mistake. When I wrote Thriller, I'd always envisioned this kind of talking section at the end. And didn't really know what we were going to do with it. But one thing I'd thought about was to have somebody, a famous voice in the horror genre, to do this vocal. Quincy's wife knew Vincent Price, and so Quincy said to me, how about if we got Vincent Price? And I said, well, that'd be amazing if we could, get him. So he spoke to his wife and they got it together, and Vincent said he would love to do it. So it was all set up that he would come in and do it. Then, and the idea was going to be that he would just talk some horror talk from the type of lines he would deliver in some of his famous roles. And right up until the night before the session, and just before I went to bed, Quincy called me and said, the session's at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and I'm a bit scared because Vincent's never been in on a pop record before. I don't know that he's ever recorded in such a manner with music tracks and headphones and everything. And it may be difficult for him to come up with something to do. So perhaps you better write something for him to say, just in case we get stuck. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll get up tomorrow morning and write it before we come to the studio. So I went off to bed, and the very next morning, the bell rings, and I'd totally forgotten this, but my publisher from England had come over to America, and it had always been planned that we would have breakfast that next morning. And he came and arrived, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to write this thing, but I've got this lengthy meeting. And so I had the breakfast with my publisher and had a long business meeting, which went up till noon. And the session was at 2 o'clock. And finally, my publisher left, and about 10 past 12, the phone rings, and it's Quincy. He says, how are you doing? Have you got something? And I said, yeah, well, don't worry about it. I'll have something. I'm just finishing it off. And so I hung up and got a piece of paper and frantically started to write some stuff. And just one of those lucky times that it just flowed out of me. I'd written all the lyrics for the song, and the theme of the whole thing was so strong anyway that it's quite easy to visualize all these kind of lines that Vincent would say. And so I started writing, and I wrote one verse there while I was waiting for the taxi, and then I got in the taxi, and while I'm going to the studio, I wrote 2 more whole verses. So I wrote 3 verses of poetry or rap, and we only needed 2 in the end anyway. And as I arrived at the studio, I saw a car pull up, and out steps Vincent Price, and the taxi pulled around the back of the studio, and I dived out of the cab, raced in the back door, said to the secretary, "Photocopy this quick." And they put it on the music stand, and he walked in, sat down in his chair, and off we went.
Do you know who Rod Tempterton is?
Yeah.
He's an English writer. He wrote many of Michael's biggest hits, like "Rock With You" and so on. And I think it was Rod's decision. And to use Vincent Price was Peggy Lipton's idea. Quincy's wife at the time was working with Vincent Price.
His methodology for songwriting, oh my, let me tell you, this guy was a consummate songwriter. This guy, in the creation of one song, would come up with 200 titles and finally nail one to start a concept with. That's just the song title. He hadn't written a note yet. Everything is of painstaking detail, and all the little layers and details of parts, he came up with all of them. It's not like we were improvising. Every part came from him, and we were duplicating.
I used to call him Rod the God. Why? Rod, he would compose day and night. Day and night.
Rod made these fantastic demos, and everything was great until you heard the vocal, because he could not sing. And what I wanted to say about Rod, another element of his brilliance, was that he made sure that every section of his songs were equally as strong. You know, a lot of songs will have a great hook, and that's it. Or they'll have like a really interesting verse, and then the chorus just kind of, flutters away. No. With the Rod songs, the verse and the chorus and even the bridge, they could be separate songs on their own. I mean, the bridge of Thriller, that's a song right there. That's just the bridge. But that was the level of quality that he brought to every song, no matter who the artist was. You know, even like with George Benson, "Give Me the Night," the same thing. If you listen to that, the bridge and the hook and the verse could be songs on their own. Go back and check out his work, and you'll see that's right.
So turn up the lamp now.
tell me a secret.
Come to me.
You got an exceptional embodiment of work. What do you want the legacy of HEATWAVE to continue?
Just, I mean, you know, one thing, we're a good-natured group, and saying that, we just love bringing joy and a lot of fun in the show, and then bringing the love connection. We love ballads, so we like that passion people have for one another, and we put that in song. And I think if I had a legacy to leave with people, it's something that they would say about HEATWAVE would be, that group, I remember they were always just a lot of fun. And these guys that are with me have, you know, carried that legacy along with me now. And we carry that, and I hope as long as we can, and to the future and whatever that may be.
To myself, I'd give plenty time to all these decisions lying in my mind. Holding hands or put my arms around her waist. Neither one of these two will I try and haste. By taking my time, we will work all proper time. Get right to convince her that there is no need for now. So I tell myself again to think deep within and remember when we first met we were only friends. Go a kiss or try and taste her tenderness. Will these be the factors that will make our life a trip? But just in case things don't settle well with her, I'll say that I'm sorry and keep hoping for the best. Mind-blowing decision, causes head-on collision. Must decide how to go. Is she mine? I want to know. Think long, you think wrong, so don't think too long. I must decide how to go. Is she mine? I want to know.